So guys, hi. In today's episode of the datadice YouTube video series, we talk about a topic everyone in terms of marketing analytics is interesting in. Universal Analytics, Google Analytics 4, there's a big switch coming up next year, middle of next year. And we are talking about the differences today. And so what is the difference in the data structure, but also when it comes to visualization and the front end. This is going to be undiscovered in this video, so enjoy and have fun.
Hello everybody, we're back here today, Alex, Thomas and Ricardo.
Hello.
And hello.
Hello.
So we made a video some weeks ago about the end of Universal Analytics, but we were talking about how it would be important to make really a distinction about what is coming up now with GA4, how it's different with Universal Analytics. And I think Alex in particular has been spending a lot of time in this topic. What have you noticed, like first impressions of needing to balancing both at the same time?
So let's start with, I think the first thing you also see when you are seeing the GA4 front end, and also when you're comparing it then with the Universal Analytics front end, that it's changing the whole navigation and style of GA4. So you have still this kind of, how's the navigation in Universal Analytics? So you are starting with audience, and then you have this kind of acquisition, so how the people come to the website.
Yeah.
Then the behavior on the website, so especially then events and so on, which are happening on the website. Then the
Conversions.
Conversions, yeah, exactly. Yes, and in GA4, it's something like that. It's a little bit called differently. We can also, show here quick summary or a quick overview about that. But yes, also in terms of, for example, they build now in GA4, they build a new overview page or a new main page, let's say maybe better like that. So for example, that this main page is more, they say AI driven. So that means, for example, when you are looking more in events or more looking on the acquisition part, UTM parameters and so on, then you are getting also over time more and more insight on this overview page or main page on the acquisition part and so on, which is quite a cool thing, I would say. So let's see how it behaves in the future and so on when people are getting more related to it and looking on it every day, how this main page behaves. But I think it's a quite cool thing. Yes, and for sure, especially for people who are analyzing the GA4 data every day, they have to acknowledge and so on all the new changes to GA4 and to the front end. Yes, so that is maybe one of the biggest changes, I would say, especially for the people who just see the front end and just compare the data with Universal Analytics and GA4. Because especially for customers, especially when we are doing the tracking and so on, or starting with tracking GA4 and they already have UA, the biggest questions we always got are about, okay, I have this metric in Universal Analytics, how I get this metric also in GA4. For example, then bounce rate and so on. Nobody knows exactly, or most of the people doesn't know what exactly is a bounce rate, but they also want to see it in GA4, for example. So for example, there are also GA4 now announced a bounce rate. But so also I think due to that
Maybe a
people
very
asked for.
detailed topic we can go inside a little bit later.
Yeah.
I would like to go one step back first of all and talk about this whole navigation thing and the look and feel which changed with GA4. And I think this is also the reason why a lot of customers, companies, however I call them, are a little bit hesitating to do that switch. So they are used to work with Universal Analytics. They know it's going to be like ending next year, but they also are a little bit like not in a good mood to switch directly to a new system because they know Universal Analytics. And it's also a shift inside our company. As you also see, Alex is struggling with the navigation names of Universal Analytics, but when it comes to GA4, he's way more knowledgeable than I am because I'm in the past or in the last, 7, 8, 9 years was working with Universal Analytics and not with GA4 so much. So and of course at every company it's quite the same, and this is going to be interesting also over the next couple of months how everyone in the company is reacting to that. And you talked about this AI driven overview page, and I have a little bit mixed feelings about that because a lot of people in the marketing world and so on, I think they also would like to customize that how they would like to see it, and they would like to see every day in and day out the same thing. And I'm not quite sure, but can I do that? I think static? Can I?
So static, not sure to be honest. But I'm pretty sure that you can also change it on your own, so that you can put there your own charts and tables and so on inside. As far as I know, you can do it. But there are also at least parts of where this is this kind of AI tool.
I think we need to start, I think we mentioned it also in a video before, but we need to start on what changed in terms of the data structure going inside Google Analytics, to explain a little bit better why GA4 is such a new thing compared to Universal Analytics. I can start with Universal Analytics, and Alex, you can do the GA4 part. So in Universal Analytics, when you were creating a web property, and the property is always, just to mention that again, the place where the data is inside. So the property was the data silo at the end. And you had an account, this is for the company, then you had 1 to n properties, depending on how many properties you created. And then you could also create multiple views on the property. And the thing with the views were, as the name already says, that inside the property there were all the data, but you could have different views where you're selecting or filtering out certain kind of data, have different settings inside, maybe also creating new measurements and dimensions. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, views are not existing anymore. Inside the properties, the data you collected inside the web property were page view oriented. That means you had one line. If you see your data silo as a big table, you had one row per page view. That means for every page view, one row, it was inside a nested field, but it's a little bit too complex for the moment. So just imagine there was one row for every page view. For everything inside that page view, and the page view is defined as you click on a certain link, the page is opening, and then everything you do on that page before a new page is reloading, this is inside that page view. So events, any other things which might happen, scrolling, clicking, viewing, everything was inside that page view. And nowadays that's not really up to date anymore. So you have pages which have no page views because they are single page applications. You have mobile applications, you have maybe some IoT stuff you would like to track. I don't know what you can track, but you would like to have this one unified version of your tracking, and that's why they basically came up with GA4, which is at the end also just new name for the web and app view, which was there already in
the origin was Firebase Analytics, right? So that was
it had different names
for mobile tracking and app application tracking. And maybe one more thing, because that is also then important in terms of to compare it with GA4, is for events in Universal Analytics you always had 3 kinds of types or information you can put inside. You can put an event category, an event action, and an event label. 3 dynamical things you can put in, or static fields as you like. So usually you take in the event category is usually the event name, and then you can put in also an event action, which is just more detailed information for the event. Yes, so because that's also important, because that also changed for GA4. So for GA4, so as Thomas said already, you have no views anymore, so everything is inside properties. But you can for sure filter still the traffic which is coming to the property. But yeah, so you don't have any more different kind of views and so on. Yes, so that's the biggest change in terms of properties and views behavior. And in terms of really the data structure, so how the table behind looks, how that changed is that everything is an event. You also see it already directly in the front end. So for example, you have also now a bigger section, I would say, in terms of events, also already in the front end, due to that everything is an event. So a page view is an event, for sure, most of the time the most important one. But you also have add to cart is also just an event, the purchase is an event, everything is like the same. And also like that, the table behind one row is one event. And the event structure is also a little bit different, and I would say a little bit more easier. Yeah, let's say it like that, because you have always the event name, so for example purchase, and then you have event parameters. And an event can have 20 or 25 parameters, I think, at least for the not for GA4 for the usual one, not for GA4 360. And in these event parameters, you can have, for example, the transaction ID and the value, or the products and so, which were purchased with all the product IDs or whatever. Yes, so that is one of the biggest changes. So you just say then, for example, okay, I want the event name purchase, and out of that I want to have the event parameter transaction IDs to check something, with how many transactions we are tracking, for example. So.
Let's maybe talk about the general tag of Google Analytics, which was there. So if you, let's say, implement Google Analytics via Google Tag Manager, there was this basic tag you had in Universal Analytics, and you still have in GA4 a little bit different because it's configuration. Maybe you can say a little bit more about that, but you have this one tag, and if you implement this basic tag of Google Analytics, of Universal Analytics before in GTM, you track by default, depending on the trigger, every page view. So the basic trigger for firing that tag was a page view. So what you then have in your analytics is you have a list of page views with a lot of standard dimensions and metrics coming with that page view. But as Alex said, for example, for purchase was a page view, so you also track that purchase, but you don't know it's like immediately from the beginning that it was a purchase, right? You need to have a second tag for that to tell Google Analytics that there was a purchase happening. You could only filter it out via the URL before. If you don't do that, everything else, scrolling, add to cart, checkout, and so on, was like additional events you had to send. With GA4, that changed a little bit, because with the classic tag you are implementing right now, you're not only getting the page views, but you also get events like scrolling events. What else, Alex?
Yeah, so it's called enhanced measurement. So scrolling, yes. Clicking is outbound clicks and so on. So when you're getting out of the page, for example. Downloads and so on, video things. So when you're starting a video, at least for YouTube videos, I think for embedded YouTube videos, you are getting also kind of information already. Yes, so like that.
And this comes with the general tag already. Mm-hmm. So the how to say, the implementation time and also how hard it was to implement everything changed a lot due to that. It's one tag and one click on enhanced metrics or enhanced what was the name again?
Enhanced measurement.
Measurements change that thing, and it's way easier for marketers to insert that tag and see how people were scrolling. And so
but for example, so the purchase, for example, you still have to put an event inside. I'm not sure in GA4 it's not possible to. So as you said, for example, for purchase, you can go for the URL if you know the URL of a purchase or the structure of the URL, let's say it like that. You can create in the GA4 frontend, you can create an event on your own. So you can say, okay, if the URL with a regex or something has this and this included with an ID or success or thank you, whatever, then you are also throwing a purchase event. So you don't get any more information out of that, because so maybe you can also get the transaction ID if it's in the URL inside, not completely sure. But at least you can say, okay, if the UI structure looks like that, it's also a purchase. Was it also possible in Universal Analytics to create these kind of
I
custom
don't
events?
think so, but I'm also not 100% sure. But on the other side, it sounds for me like setting up a goal, to be honest. It's like, where's the difference then, right? You have an additional event, okay, for your raw data, very good. But at the end, what you did before, you could have said, if there is a customer success or the success page, then I'm throwing this goal to basically also preparing the funnel and also see that something was happening or goal was reached. I don't see really the advantage of having this additional event. I would probably go for an additional tag to also have things like, for e-commerce, for example, revenue, like order value, like all the things you would like to track, including also the products.
So for sure, it's better to implement it in GTM than directly. Yes.
Tag manager, data layer is a good example. I think not so many things changed. The data layer is still there. It has the same feeling, same implementation. The structure of this, so Google had those structured objects, which then Google Analytics could work with while sending the tag. So to explain that a little bit deeper, you say you have a special event like enhanced e-commerce where you can track checkouts, add to carts, and so on, as it was before. That required sending some tags which had an option inside saying take the values from the data layer. And due to the fact that you don't need to define everything inside this tag, Google gave you a certain object structure Google can work with, that you only need to do this one click, take the data out of the data layer, and then Google was checking, or the tag was checking in the data layer, this object there? Does it have the right parameters? And if yes, taking the values out of those key value pairs. So this is still the same, but the type or the structure of the object changed a little bit.
So for example, I think in universities they more talked about product, so product was also called product, and in GA4 it's, for example, more an item, which was...
So terminology, but also a little bit the structure, how everything behaved. On top of that, let's talk a little bit about standard metrics. And you started with one standard metric already when you talked about bounce rate. One of our favorite topics, always and forever, is the bounce rate. So what is the bounce rate, Alex? Or what was the bounce rate?
Maybe can you explain the then I do the GA4.
Damn it. So what is a bounce? A bounce is basically when someone is coming to your website, he created a page view but didn't create a second page view. So he bounced off the website. So that sounds quite easy, no? But now we don't have page views anymore, and we also have single page applications. So if you think in single page applications, then maybe every visit is a bounce. So that's a problem already, because you don't have a second page view if you don't tweak your Universal Analytics setup, which is possible. So we did those implementations a lot of times. That when someone is basically scrolling and reaching a new anchor in the website, then that a new virtual page view is created, and this then triggered also this that you don't get a bounce rate. But this was the bounce rate. On the other side, there was a second measurement. It's the exit rate. And this is quite interesting because a lot of people are mixing up bounce rate and exit rate, while a bounce rate only gets or a bounce rate is only valid when you only have this one page view and then leaving the website. And what means leaving the website? Having no second click inside a time window of 30 minutes. At least that was the standard configuration. You could change those 30 minutes to 10 or 2 hours. I don't know what the maximum value were, but that was the standard configuration. So this is how bounce rate was defined. An exit rate is completely different because when you see a session, like a user going to a website, and it doesn't matter how long he was on that website, if it was only this one page view or multiple page views for 10 minutes, or he was like going on the website for 2 hours, but somewhen he has to exit that website. So the session has to end somewhen. So if you see that on a session level, it's always 100% exit rate. Makes sense. So if you go inside a store, you need to leave somewhen, or you got lost, but normally it's a 100% exit rate. If you are checking that not on session level, but on page level, you of course have no 100% exit rate. And that was changed completely for GA4 as the whole structure changed with page views to events. The bounce rate as it was defined before is not really existing anymore. So maybe Alex, you can explain now after my monologue how the bounce rate is defined right now.
So yeah, the bounce rate in GA4. It was announced some weeks ago, and we already had customers who always asked for bounce rate in GA4. So they implemented the bounce rate in GA4, but as Thomas said, it's not so easy in terms of the data structure behind it to implement this kind of bounce rate. So what they did, or what they already had before, is the session engaged numbers or KPI. So a session is engaged, you are on session level, when the user was, I think, 5 seconds on the website, when a second page view happened, or when a conversion event happened. So when one of these 3 conditions are matched, then it's a session engaged. Then the session is engaged. And then for sure you have this kind of percentage to see, okay, how many sessions of all started sessions are engaged. So the user stays some time on the website. Especially this 5 seconds thing and so on is also quite important for single page applications and so on. Yes. And now they announced the bounce rate, and it's the exact opposite of session engaged rate.
It's a reciproca, as you say in German. What's the English word for that? In German, you have this, it's a reciproca. It's when you basically switch.
So when you have a session engaged rate of 70%, then you have a bounce rate of 30%, for example.
Makes sense.
And that's
You're going to put a Google Translate.
Yeah.
Which makes also total sense, of course.
Yeah,
right?
But when you are comparing then your data with Universal Analytics to GA4, you cannot do it 100%. So that's the problem. But yeah, so that's the thing about bounce rate and the magic behind. So just one minus session engaged rate. That's it. Yes, exactly. So that's Is
that a standard metrics already, the bounce rate, or do I need to create that?
Also the session engaged and so on, they're doing on their own. So due to that, they also have the bounce rate.
Okay, good. So then I think there are way more interesting topics. Ricardo?
If someone would like to keep track of this and hear more...
I'm not prepared.
more Google Analytics.
Your talking time was too much already.
About it. I mean, there's upcoming videos about more Google Analytics 4. Where could they check it, Alex?
Yes, so you can check our Medium blog posts. So for sure, we still have our updates thing, newest features in for Data Studio, BigQuery, Google Analytics 4, or Google Analytics, but now more Google Analytics 4, and Google Tag Manager. We have still our newsletter every Friday to getting some cool charts and analyzations. We still have YouTube for sure, so you can also check our other videos. As we said, we already talked about the end of Universal Analytics, so when it's stopping, what you have to do now, and so on and so on. Yes, and LinkedIn with some team pictures and so on.
Do we have a playlist for Google Analytics already?
I think so.
Yeah.
At the moment that this video comes out, we'll make sure
definitely.
Yes. At least, yeah. So.
And we can already announce that there will be a second version next week. We will record where we go into a little bit more detail of GA4, and so don't need to wait long.
Yeah. And if you're watching the video, come check out our channel. We did a lot of we made it a bit more pretty new covers with the help of all the team, and the channel is looking quite nice. Go about it. There's playlists about different topics, and give it a shot. I think it's quite nice. So thanks everybody.
Enjoy your day. See you. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you.